This introductory slide frames the session within the EPD-Net project, which focuses on strengthening ecological planning and design capacity for disaster-resilient and sustainable cities. The objective of today's lecture is to explore how climate-adaptive plant palettes can significantly enhance urban resilience. Plant selection is not simply an aesthetic decision, it is a technical, ecological, and strategic process that influences how urban ecosystems function over decades. Climate-adaptive planting contributes to resilience by improving ecosystem performance, stabilizing soils, increasing carbon sequestration, reducing irrigation needs, and lowering plant mortality under extreme weather conditions. As global temperatures rise and precipitation patterns shift, traditional planting strategies often fail. Species that once thrived may struggle under heat waves, erratic rainfall, or prolonged drought. Within the EPD-Net framework, plant palettes are considered part of ecological infrastructure. Just as engineers calculate structural load capacity, ecological planners must calculate climatic stress tolerance. This session therefore connects botanical knowledge with climate science, design strategy, and disaster preparedness. We will explore how different climate zones influence plant selection, how multi-stress tolerance becomes essential in contemporary practice, and how climate-responsive planting aligns with sustainable urban development goals. The session emphasizes long-term thinking, selecting species that will not only survive current conditions but remain functional under projected future climates. Climate zones represent large-scale environmental patterns defined by temperature averages, rainfall distribution, humidity, wind exposure, and seasonal variability. These patterns shape vegetation distribution worldwide and determine which plant communities naturally occur in a given region. Understanding climate zones is fundamental for designers and planners because each plant species has tolerance thresholds. These include minimum winter temperature, maximum summer heat, soil moisture requirements, and tolerance to drought or salinity. When species are planted outside their tolerance range, long-term survival declines, maintenance costs increase, and ecological performance weakens. Urban environments complicate this picture further. Heat island effects elevate temperatures above regional averages. Impermeable surfaces alter water cycles. Compacted soils restrict root development. Therefore, climate zone knowledge must be combined with urban microclimate analysis. By integrating climate classification systems into plant selection, practitioners can reduce irrigation dependency, limit fertilizer use, and design more stable landscapes. This approach also enhances disaster preparedness. For example, selecting drought-tolerant species in areas projected to experience rainfall decline reduces vulnerability during water scarcity. Ultimately, climate zone awareness strengthens ecological literacy and supports informed, data-driven planting decisions. Resilient planting design extends beyond selecting hardy species. It involves structuring plant communities that mimic natural ecosystems, incorporating diversity in form, function, and ecological roles. Functional diversity is critical. A resilient planting scheme includes canopy trees, understory shrubs, herbaceous perennials, and ground covers. Each layer contributes differently. Trees regulate temperature, shrubs provide habitat, ground covers reduce soil erosion. Climate change introduces compound stresses, heat combined with drought, or flooding followed by intense sun exposure. Therefore, resilient design prioritizes species capable of tolerating multiple stresses simultaneously. Redundancy is another principle. Relying on a single dominant species increases vulnerability to pests, diseases, or climate shifts. Mixed species palettes distribute risk across ecological functions. Resilient planting also anticipates disturbance. Landscapes should recover quickly after storms, floods, or heat waves. This requires species with regenerative capacity, strong root systems, and adaptive growth patterns. By applying these principles, urban landscapes transition from decorative elements to active systems supporting ecosystem services such as cooling, air purification, stormwater regulation, and biodiversity enhancement. Climate projections show that environmental stresses increasingly overlap. Drought may coincide with heat waves, Salinity may increase due to sea level rise. Extreme rainfall may follow prolonged dry periods. Species capable of tolerating overlapping stressors possess specific adaptations. Deep root systems enable access to groundwater during drought. Osmotic adjustment mechanisms help maintain cell hydration under salinity stress. Parenchyma tissues allow oxygen transport to roots during flooding. Heat shock proteins protect cellular integrity during extreme temperatures. Understanding these physiological mechanisms allows planners to identify future-ready species. Rather than reacting to plant failure, designers can proactively integrate species with proven multi-stress tolerance. Importantly, resilience does not mean invulnerability. Even tolerant species have thresholds. Therefore, multi-stress selection must be combined with soil improvement, mulching, and appropriate irrigation strategies during establishment. This slide highlights the need for botanical literacy within planning professions. Knowledge of plant physiology is no longer optional, it is central to climate adaptation strategies. Global climate classification systems such as the Köppen system and UNEP aridity index group regions with similar temperature and rainfall patterns. These frameworks provide a structured starting point for defining climate-appropriate plant palettes. For example, Mediterranean climates are characterized by hot, dry summers and mild, wet winters. Tropical climates experience consistent warmth and seasonal rainfall variability. Continental climates show strong temperature contrasts between seasons. Designers can use these classifications to identify baseline vegetation types. However, classification alone is insufficient. Microclimatic variation within cities, caused by building density, topography, and wind patterns, creates site-specific conditions that may differ from regional norms. The value of climate classification lies in anticipating long-term ecosystem behavior. As climate zones shift due to global warming, cities may transition toward warmer categories. Therefore, plant selection should consider projected climate scenarios 20 to 50 years ahead. Integrating classification systems into EPD-Net's educational modules ensures transferable ecological knowledge across regions. Band planting success depends on understanding the interaction between temperature, rainfall timing, soil composition, and wind exposure. Heat waves increase evapotranspiration rates, reducing soil moisture availability. Intense rainfall may cause waterlogging in poorly drained soils. Soil structure significantly affects plant resilience. Compacted soils reduce root oxygenation and limit water infiltration. Sandy soils drain quickly but retain little moisture. Clay soils hold water but may become anaerobic under prolonged saturation. Wind exposure increases transpiration stress and mechanical strain on branches. Frost cycles cause root heaving and structural damage. Designers must interpret these factors collectively rather than in isolation. A species tolerant to drought may still fail in compacted urban soil. A flood-tolerant tree may struggle in saline conditions. This slide emphasizes integrated site analysis as the foundation for resilient palette design. Native species have evolved within local climatic and soil regimes. They typically require fewer inputs and support local biodiversity networks, including pollinators and birds. Climate-adapted non-native species may also play a role, particularly where projected warming exceeds historical norms. The key criterion is ecological compatibility and non-invasiveness. Using native and adapted species reduces irrigation demand, chemical inputs, and maintenance costs. It also enhances habitat connectivity within urban areas. Resilience emerges when planting design aligns with ecological history while anticipating future climate realities. Drought-tolerant species survive prolonged water scarcity through structural and physiological adaptations. Alia europaea develops deep roots and small, leathery leaves that reduce water loss. Lavandula species possess aromatic oils and reduced leaf surfaces that limit transpiration. Agave stores water in succulent tissues. These species provide shade, reduce erosion, and maintain vegetative cover during extreme heat. In arid and semi-arid regions, they form the backbone of climate-resilient urban landscapes. Drought-tolerant planting also reduces reliance on irrigation infrastructure, conserving water resources and lowering operational costs. Salt stress is a growing challenge in urban landscapes, particularly in coastal cities, estuaries, and roadside environments exposed to de-icing salts. Elevated salt concentrations disrupt water uptake, damage root tissues, and reduce plant vitality. Many conventional ornamental species are highly sensitive to salinity, making plant selection in such areas especially critical. Salt-tolerant grasses, also known as halophytes, possess physiological adaptations that allow them to survive under saline conditions. These include ion compartmentalization within plant cells, selective sodium exclusion, and in some species, specialized salt-excreting glands. Their dense fibrous root systems stabilize soil and improve sediment retention, which is particularly valuable in coastal and dune systems. Species such as Spartina alterniflora are widely used in shoreline restoration because they tolerate tidal inundation while reducing erosion and buffering storm impacts. In urban design, salt-tolerant grasses contribute to soil stabilization and erosion control, stormwater filtration, coastal and roadside resilience, habitat provision for insects and birds. However, successful implementation requires integrating these species with appropriate drainage design and soil preparation to prevent excessive salt accumulation. In the context of climate change and rising sea levels, salt-tolerant grasses are essential components of adaptive and nature-based urban infrastructure. Flood-prone urban areas require plant species capable of tolerating periodic waterlogging, fluctuating groundwater levels, and soil instability. Deep-rooted trees play a crucial role in such environments because their structural root systems anchor soil layers, reduce erosion, and enhance slope stability along riverbanks and stormwater corridors. Species such as Taxodium disticum, bald cypress, develop specialized root adaptations, including pneumatophores, structures that facilitate oxygen exchange when roots are submerged. This physiological adaptation enables survival during prolonged flooding events, where oxygen availability in soil becomes critically low. Flood-tolerant trees contribute to disaster risk reduction by slowing surface runoff through canopy interception, enhancing infiltration and groundwater recharge, stabilizing riparian edges, reducing sediment transport during peak flow events. Importantly, these species function as nature-based flood mitigation systems. When integrated into urban stormwater parks, retention basins, or restored river corridors, they reduce reliance on hard engineering solutions such as concrete embankments. However, flood resilience is not solely about survival during inundation. Post-flood recovery capacity is equally important. Trees that can regenerate leaves quickly after stress and maintain structural integrity under hydraulic pressure are more valuable in long-term climate adaptation strategies. Designers must also consider soil composition. Flood-tolerant trees require permeable soils that allow drainage once floodwaters recede. Compacted urban soils may limit root oxygen recovery, reducing resilience despite inherent species tolerance. Thus, deep-rooted trees are not simply aesthetic landscape elements. They are structural ecological infrastructure components that reduce flood vulnerability and support hydrological balance within urban systems. Cold-hardy perennials are essential in temperate and continental climates where winter conditions impose significant physiological stress. These species have evolved strategies to withstand freezing temperatures, ice formation, and repeated freeze-thaw cycles. At the cellular level, cold-hardy plants produce antifreeze proteins and accumulate solutes that prevent intracellular ice crystallization. Many enter dormancy, reducing metabolic activity and conserving energy during periods of limited sunlight and extreme cold. In the context of climate change, winter variability is increasing. Instead of stable cold periods, cities experience alternating freeze and thaw cycles, which can be more damaging than consistent low temperatures. These cycles stress plant tissues and root systems. Species such as Bergenia demonstrate resilience by maintaining evergreen foliage with thick, leathery leaves resistant to frost damage. Their ability to remain visually present in winter landscapes also supports aesthetic continuity and year-round ecological function. Cold-hardy perennials contribute to soil stabilization during snowmelt, early spring pollinator support, structural layering beneath deciduous canopies, reduced replacement costs after harsh winters. Importantly, resilient winter planting reduces maintenance interventions. Replanting after freeze damage is costly and disrupts ecosystem continuity. Selecting species with demonstrated frost tolerance enhances long-term landscape stability. In continental climates, combining cold hardy herbaceous species with evergreen shrubs and conifers creates structural diversity that buffers against temperature extremes. This layered approach ensures that ecological functions, such as habitat provision and soil protection, persist even during winter dormancy. Arid zone plant palettes must respond to extreme drought, intense solar radiation, high evapotranspiration rates, and often poor soil fertility. Designing for aridity requires understanding water efficiency at both species and community levels. Alia europaea provides structural canopy with minimal water demand once established. Its silvery foliage reflects sunlight, reducing leaf temperature and water loss. Beneath this canopy, Lavandula species contribute pollinator support while maintaining low transpiration rates due to their narrow, aromatic leaves. Agave species offer ground-level structural contrast and act as living water reservoirs through succulent tissue storage. Their shallow but widespread roots capture episodic rainfall efficiently. The synergy among these species creates a stable plant community where shade reduces soil temperature and evaporation. Root diversity enhances soil structure. Floral diversity supports insects even in dry conditions. Urban applications include plazas, roadside plantings, and low-maintenance public parks. Importantly, arid palettes reduce irrigation demand, a critical advantage in water-scarce regions. Design considerations must include mulching to retain soil moisture, permeable surfaces to enhance infiltration, and spacing that allows adequate airflow without excessive sun exposure. Arid zone planting demonstrates how ecological intelligence transforms constraint into opportunity, creating landscapes that are visually distinctive, culturally resonant, and climatically robust. Temperate climates offer moderate rainfall and seasonal variation, allowing diverse planting strategies. However, resilience remains essential due to increasing summer heatwaves and irregular precipitation patterns. A layered temperate palette might center on Quercus robur, a long-lived canopy tree providing habitat for hundreds of associated species. Its deep root system enhances soil structure and carbon storage. Understory shrubs like Cornus moss contribute early spring nectar and autumn fruit, supporting pollinators and birds. Herbaceous species such as Hemerocallis stabilize soil, reduce weed pressure, and create visual continuity. Layering improves ecological performance by increasing habitat diversity, reducing soil exposure, enhancing microclimate moderation, providing year-round interest. Temperate design must also consider storm resilience. Broad canopied trees require structural pruning and adequate rooting space to prevent windthrow. By integrating canopy, shrub, and ground layers, temperate palettes maintain ecological function across seasons while adapting to warming trends. Tropical climates present unique challenges: high humidity, intense rainfall, rapid biomass growth, and frequent storms. Tropical palettes must balance lush productivity with structural stability. Ficus species create expansive canopy cover, delivering significant cooling benefits in hot urban centers. Their large leaves enhance transpiration-driven cooling. Heliconia and Canna indica introduce vibrant color and support pollinator diversity. Their rapid growth allows quick establishment, reducing soil erosion in heavy rainfall environments. However, tropical planting requires adequate drainage to prevent root rot, structural reinforcement for storm resistance, maintenance planning to manage vigorous growth. Biodiversity potential in tropical palettes is exceptionally high. Layered tropical planting supports birds, insects, and small mammals, strengthening urban ecological networks. In dense cities, tropical green infrastructure can dramatically reduce heat stress, improve air quality, and create psychologically restorative environments. Continental climates are characterized by strong seasonal contrasts, cold winters and warm or hot summers. Plant palettes must tolerate both freezing conditions and summer drought. Pinus sylvestris provides evergreen structure and wind protection. Its needle leaves reduce water loss and tolerate cold temperatures. Salvia species contribute drought tolerance and pollinator resources during summer. Bergenia maintains winter ground cover, protecting soil from freeze-thaw erosion. Combining evergreen structure with herbaceous diversity creates year-round resilience. Designers must anticipate thermal amplitude, rapid shifts between temperature extremes, and select species with broad tolerance ranges. Continental planting design exemplifies adaptation to variability rather than stability. Climate-adapted palettes function as integrated ecological systems. By aligning species with both current and projected climate conditions, cities reduce replacement costs, increase survival rates, and strengthen ecosystem services. Benefits include urban cooling through shade and evapotranspiration, improved stormwater infiltration, carbon sequestration, habitat connectivity. Resilience emerges from diversity, redundancy, and adaptation. Climate-informed planting reduces vulnerability to extreme events and supports long-term sustainability. Resilient planting must resonate culturally and visually. Landscapes that reflect regional identity foster community attachment and stewardship. Public participation in plant selection enhances acceptance and reduces vandalism or neglect. Educational signage and community planting events build ecological literacy. Design excellence integrates ecological function with aesthetic coherence. Structured compositions, seasonal variation, and textural diversity create visually engaging yet climate-resilient landscapes. Resilience is therefore ecological, social, and cultural. Long-term success depends on stewardship. Monitoring plant performance, adjusting irrigation regimes, and replacing unsuitable species are part of adaptive management. Urban ecosystems evolve. Climate trajectories may shift further than projected. Flexible planning frameworks allow gradual palette adjustments over time. Stewardship transforms planting from static installation into dynamic ecological infrastructure. Within the EPD-Net mission, continuous learning and cross-regional knowledge exchange strengthen resilience capacity. The session concludes by reinforcing that climate-adaptive plant palettes are not optional design enhancements. They are foundational strategies for building sustainable, disaster-resilient urban environments prepared for the uncertainties of the 21st century.